Okay, so what we've got here is my semi-finished guitar body and almost fully put together guitar. And the reason I say semi-finished is because these things are actually not drilled in yet. They're not fully permanently attached, and that's not really attached there either with any screws. But basically, I've got a bit of a unique finish here. I'm calling it Winter White. It's kind of like a Mary Kay on steroids. I haven't really seen anything else like it online or on the internet. Mary Kay finishes usually have a opaque border with a less transparent finish and only transparency on the inside there. This one, as you can see, is fully transparent everywhere with a nice solid grain pattern. And as I was making this, I took a lot of videos along the way. I'm going to upload those together in a compilation at the end of this video and show you how to do this step by step. But first I'll just take this apart here and give you a better idea of what it looks like and talk about how I did this. So let's just take that off there for a second. Okay, so this started off as the Tone Bomb Swamp Ash body that I reviewed in one of my previous posts if you've been following along. And what I did is I sanded the whole thing smooth with 200 grit right away to get a nice smooth working area. After that, I took some dark brown dye and I stained the entire thing dark brown. Now that might sound a little bit weird because I wasn't really going for a dark color, but I did that to darken these grain lines, as you can see here. And what that did is it made the entire surface dark, and then I took 100 grit sandpaper and sanded everything back again. And what that did is it lightened all of the normal areas and left the grain dark. So I ended up with a nice, highly contrasted guitar body. Unfortunately, there's not really any areas on here left that have that pattern, but you'll see them in the video as I'm going through the process. So once that was done, the body looked a little bit light. It looked a little bit dry. So I hit it with 200 grit and then went over it with a tung oil finish. And what that did is it darkened the whole body to a nice, nice lively, saturated brown, healthy looking brown color. I let that cure for about 3 days just to let it dry, let that oil finish do everything it needs to, evaporate and such. And then I went over it with 2 coats of Olympic white paint by Duplicolor, and that's an acrylic lacquer. It's just the stuff you can get at your normal auto parts store. And apparently what Fender used to use back in the day when they were painting these Strats and such. Yeah, so I let that dry and smoothed out all the little runs and areas that I needed to. It wasn't anything big. And then went at it with some nitro. So I laid down about 4 or 5 coats of nitro and let it dry fully in between each. And then I sanded it down. I went progressively higher. So I started with 400, 600, and finally with 800. As you can see, you can't really see any shininess in this finish. What I used was the satin nitro. You can get gloss nitro, but I like satin because I like this flat finish. Just looked cool to me. Yeah, so I did that, and what that did is it filled in all of the areas that had a little bit of texture to it, because I didn't really want any texture in this finish, while it still allowed me to retain a very thin color finish. So that means this guitar is going to relic nicely. This paint job is going to wear away as it's played with the years, and it's going to look nice and authentic. Yeah, so that's all cured. I gave it about a week to cure, and then I started putting everything together. And that's how I got where I am now. Oh, finally there's this, in the cavities here, you can see it's nice and black. And what that is some nice black shielding paint. It's just, it's right here on the ground actually. I just bought that at just a guitar parts place and shielded the cavities. I'm probably going to go over that with another layer. And what that does is it kind of blacks out the sloppy looking areas in the cavities that you can't really get to properly. And it also provides an extra layer of shielding for the electronics once they're installed. So with that said, I'm going to start up the little montage here and show you guys exactly how I did it. Here you go. So I'm about halfway in my finishing process here. What I've done is hit this body with a coat of dark stain. Um, and then I followed that up by sanding the body down with a 100 grit piece of sandpaper. And the reason I did that is because if you look carefully in here, you can see a couple drops of stain there. Now that's the stain that I stained it with. Now if you look carefully at the center here, look at the grain on that, and then look at the grain on the outside. You can see that the grain on the outside is a little bit dark, and that was my goal, was to darken the grain lines so that when I give it the nice transparent finish with that stuff there, I get a more shocking, interesting finish. And you can see the oil is already bringing out the natural look of the wood. In my opinion, it makes it look like if it's a little bit wet. So you're just going to be generous with the amount of oil and work it all in there. Okay, so the tung oil finish is applied and dried. And you can see a stark difference now from before I applied the finish here. The wood is a lot darker, looks a lot more alive. And I know that when I spray over that with my lacquer, these grain lines are just going to pop.